We're pleased to welcome Dan Cassino, Executive Director of the Fairleigh Dickinson University poll. Good to see you, Dan.
Hey, nice to speak with you. Always a pleasure.
You got it. We're going to put up the website for the poll. Tell everyone what the poll is and what kind of issues and things you look at.
Sure. So the Fairleigh Dickinson University poll, formerly known as Public Mind, has been around for more than 20 years now. And we do public interest polling in New Jersey and nationwide. We specialize in topics like masculinity, gambling, and conspiracy beliefs. So aside from all that, we actually do a lot of polling here in New Jersey. And that's our big mission, is that the politicians in New Jersey don't know what the public wants. We know that from a lot of ways they behave. And when we tell them what the public wants, they actually do respond. We've seen that many ways in recent years and over the 20 years we've been doing this, that the politicians are desperate to know what the public wants. It's our job to tell them that. And when we do, it works. So when we call, pick up your phone so we got a good sample, please.
So it's so interesting, Dan. You say the politicians need to know what people think. I'm going to get into a larger discussion with you about whether politicians are there to reflect the will of the people, even if they believe that the will of most people polled isn't the best public policy. That's a question we'll get into. But as it relates to the November 7th legislative election, we're taping this obviously after that, it'll be seen after that. What were the polls telling you that the people, most people cared about, and how did it manifest itself in the Democrats gaining more seats in the Senate and more seats in the lower house in the Assembly, and gaining a virtually a super majority in both houses, which they've never had, haven't had in years?
So we did see there were big opportunities for Republicans. That's what our polling showed, is if voters had been thinking about the Republican issues like parental choice and parental control of schools, then voters were willing to side with Republicans. We saw huge shifts, especially among independents. What the results tell us, though, is that none of this matters. Number one, if Republicans can't get their message out, in New Jersey, it is hard to reach voters, especially in an off-year election like this most recent one. Most voters simply aren't paying very much attention, and trying to get that message or any message out to those voters is incredibly difficult. Republicans weren't up to the task. The other thing we saw is that partisanship dominates. When people are looking at who they're going to vote for, they are not thinking about the individual candidate on the ballot for the most part. They are thinking about partisanship. Democrats vote for Democrats, Republicans vote for Republicans, unless you give them a compelling reason to otherwise. And in most cases, outside of just a couple districts, nobody gave them a compelling reason to do that.
And independents, people who are not registered as Democrats or Republicans, disproportionately chose not to vote in an off-year legislative election, correct?
Absolutely right. Turnout was pretty good, but we're still in the upper 20s. Voting is a habit. If you vote once, you're likely to vote again. If you keep on voting, you're going to vote in every election. But independents, by and large, aren't those habitual voters. Why? There's no reason to follow baseball if you don't have a favorite team. If you don't care who wins, you don't like Republicans or Democrats, why would you pay attention to politics? Especially now when the political arena is so toxic. Lots of people are saying, you know what? Talks in all their houses, I don't like any of these guys, and just turn it off.
Okay, but Dan, here's what's interesting, really interesting to me. You mentioned the issue of parental rights. Now, I'm a big fan of, my area of research academically at a different institution, Rutgers, back in the day, was in communication and media, meaning how you frame the question often dictates the response you get. Here's the question. You mentioned parental choice. The question about parental notification, about a child who may be expressing to a school administrator in a public school that he or she is, or they are confused about gender, that they identify in a certain way, and the question becomes, should parents know or not? But how you frame that question has an awful lot to do with the response you get. How was that question framed so you found out what people thought about parental rights?
Sure. So the way we framed that question was by asking not about any one issue in particular. We're actually trying to model it on the way Republicans are trying to frame the election. We asked about how much control parents should have over what happens in schools. A little bit of control, a moderate amount of control, or complete control. And we find is most people in New Jersey are right in the middle. They say parents should have some control, but not too much control. And what both political parties are trying to do is frame the other side as being the extremists. Republicans saying Democrats don't want you to have any control over what happens in schools. Democrats saying Republicans want the craziest person on your school board to run everything. And both sides are trying to frame the other one as being the extremist, when in reality, most people in New Jersey, and actually I think most politicians in New Jersey, are right there in the middle.
You know, Dan, what I'm curious about, and the graphic will come up, Democracy at a Crossroads. Excuse me, it used to be called Democracy at a Crossroads. I asked our team to change it to Democracy in Danger. To what degree, based on the public not being engaged in the political process, and more importantly, issues and where candidates stand on issues? Trust me, there's a question here. And frankly, having low information about a lot of these issues and being turned off. You used that phrase before, turned off, a pox on both of their houses. What does that all mean for the future of representative democracy, Dan?
Well, in New Jersey, we have a system that's designed to turn people off, to get people to not pay attention to the candidates, not pay attention to the issues. We have a very closed political system run in large part by party bosses at the county and at the state level. And that means voters aren't supposed to know. Your job as a voter, as far as both Republicans and Democrats are concerned, is to show up and put the right button, push the right line. That is not the way representative democracy is supposed to work. Now, there are upsides to that. In New Jersey, we have a less toxic political process, reducing other places. We see that members of the state legislature, if they go too far to the left or to the right, their party tends to kick them out. And that's something that
happened. Hold on 1 second. Is that what happened to former, this will air, he'll be in 2024, former state senator Ed Durr, truck driver Ed, who beat the Senate President Steve Sweeney in 2021, who, when asked about abortion, I believe he said, and I don't think I'm paraphrasing, if I need to be correct, I will, if we want to talk about a woman not getting pregnant or preventing a pregnancy, she should, quote, keep her legs closed. Did he actually say that, Dan?
Yes, he did. I think he said it before he was in office, but he certainly said it. And what happened? The state Republican Party said, you're the incumbent, we're not going to kick you off the ballot, but we're not going to give you any money. You're on your own. You try and figure this out for yourself. And as a result, he's not in office anymore. Sometimes even candidates that voters like. So Nia Gill up here in North Jersey was well liked by our constituents. The Democratic Party got her out. So she is no longer in the state house because she was upsetting the Democrats too much. The Democrats and Republicans do everything they can to keep control. And that can be a good thing in terms of actually getting stuff done. It's a bad thing in terms of democracy. There's not a lot of choice.
Before I let you go, why'd you become fascinated in polling?
I'm a cognitive psychologist by training. I study how people think about issues. The problem is most cognitive psychologists just look at these sort of nebulous things. How do you perceive color and stuff? I actually love politics. So I wanted to look at something that has real world outcomes. So I study how people think about politics. There's no bigger arena to do it than with polling. Also, we have a real world effect, and that matters a lot.
Dan Cassino is the executive director of the Fairleigh Dickinson University poll. Dan, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I'm Steve Adubato. That's Dan Cassino. We'll see you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Hackensack Meridian Health, Community Food Bank of New Jersey, Wells Fargo, the New Jersey Education Association, PSC&G, Operating Engineers, Local 825, Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, New Brunswick Development Corporation, and by these public-spirited organizations, individuals, and associations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the important issues facing the Garden State, and by Employers Association of New Jersey. Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, and by NJ.com.
At the Community Food Bank of New Jersey.
We are working.
Now more than ever.
To fill the emptiness caused by hunger.
We are the state's largest anti-hunger organization.
And together with our 800+ community partners,
We are committed to delivering food,
Help.
And hope.
To our hundreds and thousands of neighbors in need.